Howdy, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Kaushik. I'm the co-lead on Project Theo. And yeah, this is the midterm presentation. Okay, so the problem we want to solve with Project Theo is that a lot of tutoring services and websites mainly teacher to student. And studies have shown, such as like the one conducted by Tullis and Goldstone, that when students learn from other students, it leads to them having like higher linear outcomes, so they do better in school. And we wanted to solve this problem by creating a platform for the students to connect with and tutor other students. So ideally, this platform should allow students to connect with other students from the university quickly because students from the university know exactly what topics are covered by specific classes and allow them to make payments easily through the application. So our product, Project Theo, is an online marketplace for tutors where tutees can find tutors and make appointments. Tutors can receive requests for appointments and either approve or deny those requests. And then appointments can be edited, and then these updates can be viewed by both the tutor and the tutee before both of them approve it. So appointments can also be searched based on the availability, subject, or information about the tutor. And currently, payment and meetings are done separately through contact information that the tutee and the tutor share. But in the future, we hope to have payments be done through the website using something like Stripe. So the social impact of Project Theo, the first one is it helps foster a more engaged student community, and it encourages peer-to-peer connection and collaboration, and it creates a supportive campus community where knowledge and experience is shared between students. It also helps empower students, so tutors get to gain like leadership, teaching, and entrepreneurial skills, and learners also get to like take ownership and be active in the academic development. And Project Theo also helps further education by making tutoring more accessible and personalized, and it encourages academic growth outside of the classroom. And it also increases access to education. So we offer flexible on-demand help tailored to specific students' needs. And some of this stuff is not what a traditional university can, like Texas A&M, can offer students. So the architecture of our um, application is basically like this. So we have Django to serve the REST API backend and middleware involved in the backend. We use the Act to display the front end, and then we deployed the backend and front end and the Postgres SQL database on a DigitalOcean app platform. So we're about to start the demo, and some of the people more like involved in the coding aspect will be talking about that.
Hello. So my name's Adam. I am a member of Project Deal, and I am part of the front end web like development team. And I designed the nav bar, the landing page, and some of the footer. So I'll be talking about the nav bar first. So as you see, the nav bar is separated into like left and right, where the left links are basically like kind of like resources about us, the dashboard, and the right links are basically your updates, your login, your sign up. Um, Currently, some of these links don't actually bring you to like that exact page because those pages are a work in progress. But for example, if you click on the login button, it will bring you to the login page, and then you can click on the icon button to go back to the home page. And then the actual landing page itself, we have a title, and we kind of have like some like catchy catchphrases, as long as two buttons that don't do anything right now because the pages aren't done. But in the future, that's how you could, book your first session, or you could become a tutor. And then down below is basically our footer, where it's mostly like resourceful links for the user. And yeah, that's the landing page and the nav bar and footer.
Hello, my name's Owen. I'm a backend developer for Theo. I implemented Google OAuth so users can log in securely using their Google accounts. We use the social auth app package to handle OAuth flow and configured it with our frontend and backend to support secure redirection and user session management. Unauthenticated users cannot access our API endpoints, and later the front end will also restrict access to certain pages unless the user is authenticated. Right now, Duncan is already logged into Chrome and has a session, so it won't prompt him to log in.
Hello, I'm Renev. I was another part of the front end for Project Theo. I'm responsible for this calendar you see on my schedule. This is largely the React Big Calendar library that we used here. We used it because it has lots of clearly defined classes, making it easily stylable. And it also has a multitude of views, including month, week, day, agenda. It even tracks the exact time, as you saw earlier with that yellow bar, the small yellow bar. And it can also load in events such as appointments that we would have in the backend. Currently, I don't think our database is seeded for the app, so it does not display, but it does for a locally loaded database.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I worked on implementing the tutor dashboard. So this is the page shown to someone who is logged in as a tutor, and it shows the tutor confirmations. So you can click on a tutor confirmation, and it'll give them more detail on the tutor confirmation. They can either confirm or reject a session. Um, and then there's also the looking to tutor page, and Sean worked on this, and so it has potential tutors and what courses they teach and what price they're at. And it also has a search feature at the top, so you can search and find a potential tutor. Additionally, there's updates, so you can see updates from admin, tutors, and tutees in the updates bar.
Howdy, I'm Andre. I'm a member of the backend. And so in the backend, we're using Django to serve up the API to access our Postgres database. And there's just a really basic model we have right now of users, which is like the base model. And these are the users that log in and authenticate to our app. And we have a 2T model actually, which is every user we automatically make a 2T profile for. And so by default, they're a 2T, but then also they can become a tutor later. And so there's some inheritance at play here. Overall, we just have basic CRUD endpoints for essentially every operation of the database. But these are locked behind session authentication. So you have to be authenticated through Google OAuth and have session tokens to be able to access all these endpoints.
I think it's also worth noting that this is our deployed version of the app. So if you guys were to go to this link here, you'd be able to see all this stuff yourself, given some things might require you to be authenticated.
Okay, so now that the demo's done, we're going to talk a little bit about the project plan and what we've done, what we have in progress, and what's upcoming. So week one, we got introduced to each other. Basically, we had that opening call with Dr. Kibo. And then week two, we started getting into the thick of like project development. So like project setup, deploying the application on DigitalOcean, and we started work on auth a little bit. Weeks 3 and 4, we finished up auth, and then we finished the landing page and dashboard, as you all just saw. And then right now, over this week and next week, we're trying to finish the profile page. So being able to view and edit it, and have your results up here in the back end. And then for the weeks 7 through 8, we want to finish appointments. So creating appointments, joining appointments, obtaining appointments, all of that in the database and on the front end. And in the last 2 weeks, we're going to implement searching, being able to report like appointments or users, and then any final like bugs or fixes we want to make to the application. And then at the end of all of that, if we still have a good amount of time left, we'll try implementing in-app payments through something like Stripe, as I said earlier, or 2Ts like list appointments. So 2Ts can request like appointments for specific classes, but not to like a specific tutor. And the gist of how a team interacted and contributed to the project. So we have the team split into out like equal halves, front and back end. We had a weekly Scrum meetings every noon around-ish, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we used GitHub project board to create issues and assign tasks to the members of the team. And then Outside of the Scrum meetings on Zoom, we had a lot of like calls on Discord where we talked, we troubleshooted, problem solved, and just worked together on code and connecting the front end and back end. So on the back end was Duncan, myself, Owen, Michael, Zahir, and Andre. And then front end was Sean, Sarah, Adam, Lanive, Jose, and Eric. Thank y'all for listening, and we're open to any questions y'all might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. What is the approach to testing that you've used so far and will use going forward?
Currently, all of our tests are mainly done by hand through multiple people. Whenever there's a pull request that's ready to be merged, as of now, we are pulling it locally and testing it locally as well. We have plans to spin up our Django tests and get some testing frameworks for the front end as well, and as well as automate it through GitHub Actions, although that is also still a work in progress.
Okay. And is each developer testing their own code, or are you kind of peer testing, or?
It's a little bit of both. Mainly people will test their own code, and then once it's ready, either me or Kaushik will pull it and do the test and do some tests as well.
Okay. And one other question is, so for students who are new to the particular technology that you're using, so let's say, so obviously I think some people have experience with what you're doing. Not everyone is. I know you've taken some tutorials and all that, but in general, for the people who are sort of learning something in order to implement, is it sort of independent learning, or are you doing sort of pair programming or something like that to get those students up to speed in the technologies that you're?
I haven't been a big part of the development process. I believe I've seen a lot of pair programming going along. Honestly, the developers would probably be a better answer to these questions.
Yeah, that was a question to anybody that could answer it.
I can answer this one.
Okay.
So we do a bit of both. If we're looking into something that you're not familiar with, of course, you go off on your own and pull some tutorials, try to learn it. But also there's a few things like when we were just getting started with Django, me and Zahir worked together to start designing the models. So we had some peer programming going off there. I don't know, that we would just send messages back and forth as we were figuring out how to work different database schema, because we were also trying to do something a little more complicated than just like normal models, like abstraction, inheritance, and stuff. So those are definitely helpful there too.
Okay, that sounds good. And this one is just out of curiosity. Are you using AI in any way for the learning process or development process?
I personally have used it to learn some of the new technologies. It's very helpful. Like, oh, I need this problem. Is there any recommendations of like what to use and what to learn?
I guess everyone has their own, habits as far as bringing that into the development process.
I've been using it as like a alternative to Google if I don't even know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question for, oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was really interested to hear about the inheritance you have going on between being like a tutee and a tutor and how that works, because I have no idea how that works and how you're planning on doing that. And then also about how do you store a person's like connect their Google authentication to like their like information about their personal like profile and have it so that whenever they sign in again, it pulls up and you have that all stored. Like how is your storage like set up? And then also how's that like inheritance hierarchy work?
Okay, so in Django, that's actually a lot of it's built in. What we're using is just a generic abstract like base profile model, which then the tutor profile inherits and the tutee profile inherits and adds their own attributes to. And that helps also with just separating different features and views to be completely independent rather than just inheriting directly from the tutee as the tutor. Um, and also Django has some built-in like authentication, which we are using Google OAuth for authentication, but we can use some of the features there to tie like a specific authenticated user to a user.
Owen, do you have anything more on that?
No, I think that covered it pretty well.
I don't know. I know at least me personally, that was something I wanted to bring up in tomorrow's Scrum meeting, now that we're getting into the profiles and stuff. I'm honestly not too sure how we can connect a single person, like this, a single end user to their person in the database. But considering that it understands that I've logged in before and knows who I am, there's got to be some way to do it. So essentially, your answer is we found a package that does it for us.
Smart. It's always best to have other people's work to build off of.
Dr. Kibo, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, it's actually I'm very curious and excited to know the contribution of your QT in the program and in whatever you've built so far. So I believe Eric is in the call. You want to share with us, anything you've enjoyed doing so far, um, as part of the result that we have in this demo.
So I have enjoyed working with the team. I haven't personally added anything yet because when I
Right.
joined this, I was really, what the heck is going on with my camera? I didn't touch anything with that. Okay.
No, I like the avatar. You can leave it.
Let's not. So, anyways, I personally haven't added anything because I've been busy learning how to add stuff and trying to find out what I can contribute. I think the job of troubleshooting is fitting nicely because it allows me to see what to use what I've learned to help in a way that makes sure that I'm most likely not going to mess something up in a way that hurts us. But so far, I've learned it how to code with React from knowing basically nothing.
I know Jose isn't here right now. He got called in for a shift, which is sad to see, but I believe, in fact, just last night he was working with our front end team all as a group implementing his very first coding task. Is that correct, Adam?
Yes, then that's correct. The feature specifically is not currently in the development, like the production branch, but as we finish like the account page later this week, his feature will be like featured on the actual website. Um, so yeah, it was basically just linking a button to a page, that we will further like implement in the future. And then I guess since he's already done that, he can we'll probably have him like work a little bit on designing the page itself so he can have some experience with actual like designing like a whole page. So
Thank you.
All right. Anything else you got for us? We're ready. Hit us.
I have some more questions, but I'll let everyone else go first.
I guess a
Okay, well,
question I have, I was
okay,
wondering,
okay.
what's the biggest challenge y'all have faced so far? Just curious to see how y'all's experience is comparing to ours.
I'll say it's probably going to vary from person to person. My biggest issue has been deployment. Me and Michael are our deployment people, so we've already probably spent a combined 5 hours at least so far, debugging deployment issues, trying to set up environment variables and stuff like that. Uh, it can be a pain, especially when it takes like 5 minutes for it to fail, which really sucks. If there's any other developers who have challenges they'd like to talk about.
I mean, oh, you can go.
So you got it. You go first.
Yeah, so I was well, I passed it off to someone else because I couldn't figure it out in the end, but it was for authentication. I was trying to pass stuff through cookies, so it'd be like more secure. But since we're using Vite, like we have two different like addresses, like for the local host for the back end and front end, and I was having like major issues like passing a cookie from one to the other, and I couldn't figure it out. But yeah, that was one of my problems that I had.
I'm not like big in the development side, but something that just came up for me is I was trying to implement like a function, and then I'm also like not at all experienced with Django. I've used Flask, which is like kind of, in my experience, you have to code a lot of the stuff in Flask. When Django, it's a lot more abstracted. So I implemented a function that I would normally implement in Flask, and then like right after I implemented it, I realized I didn't need it because Django has it built in. So it's kind of just been a learning process, trying to figure out how Django works.
I guess one other big challenge that we ran into is just back-end, front-end communication. This happened both in local development and uh, production, where we want our code base to be simple enough to where we code it once and it works everywhere. And that took a lot of configuration from pretty much everyone on the team in order to set that up. Michael came in clutch with some front end configuration that made it so that we just define our fetches once on the front end. If we need to fetch any data, we say fetch from this relative endpoint. And as long as you're in development and both your development servers are running, it'll work. And as long as you're in production, it'll also just work. So, but I did have to spend a couple times in calls with people making sure and debugging why that connection wasn't working properly.
Yeah, we've definitely had some similar issues with like, deployment and then like front and back end connections and like versions being mismatched and stuff. So I feel that.
It's crazy as heck.
Oh
I've
yeah.
modified our deployment instructions like 3 separate times now to try and keep it up to date with everything that's going on.
Good. Well, with everything that happened so far, if you had to predict till August, how confident are you in completing or reaching your milestones at the end of the program?
As team lead, I think we will get most of them done based on our current velocity of development so far. Uh, we were trying to leave an entire week open for bug fixes and final changes that may need to be made, but I don't think we're going to have that final week with nothing planned. And I'm also a little unsure how far we'll get in the reporting section, trying to prioritize all of the main app components first, like appointments and searching and making sure all that gets done. Reporting is kind of in the maybe. We're probably not going to have that extra week, but we're being hopeful. So we'll get a lot done. Maybe not everything we said we would, but it'll be there, maybe bare bones.
Okay. Well, if you need testers, you have another set of 12 people on the other side that should be able to test, right? So take advantage of each other's. That will be a hint. I'll give you that because each team could be testing, a team could be testing the other one, right? So you have a bunch of people hopefully willing to help you out. Well, thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Any other comments, feedback, questions?
It's Hung, and I don't know, like from the CO team, did you have any like research into how to store like credential for the application, or how do you store like database username and password and those kind of credential right now?
I can take this one, I think. So kind of the magic of Google OAuth is we don't really need to store any of that stuff because Google like stores your email and your password for you. So you just need to log in with Google and then we'll pass the token, and that's basically it. Django handles everything else for us.
Yeah, but your application, your Django need to have username and password to access the database, right?
Not necessarily, no. Because Google OAuth basically handles like the storing of passwords and usernames for us. We don't need a
No, that is the user side. But for the application to run, your Django will need some database and it will need some sort of username and password.
Are you talking about like the database password and user?
Yeah, for your
That's
application.
that's done through environment variables on
Okay.
our production environment for the back end.
Okay.
DigitalOcean actually made it really easy.
Okay.
Where when you provision the database, it gives you a connection string to the database connected to the app already. So we just had to load that connection string into our project through environment variables.
Okay, got it.
Boom.
And for local development, the developers do the same way or
So we have a separate production database that is only for production data. And in fact, our project will detect whether or not you are running this locally or in a production environment. And if you are running it locally, it will look for a locally sourced SQLite database instead. So a more lightweight alternative to use for local development.
Okay. Yeah, I think yeah, I wish to see that you can also set up a PostgreSQL on the local machine for the developer to work with the application. But that is a good option too. Okay.
We could definitely do it because Django's ORM makes it so that it's essentially database agnostic. Doesn't care what database we're using. It would just be a matter of setup.
Yeah.
Question in chat. Does the connection string get retrieved as part of a DevOps process, or do you grab it and insert it with each deployment? It's automated. So I assume that means part of the DevOps. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that, but essentially when we provisioned our database in DigitalOcean, it automatically added an environment variable that was like interpolated string of db.database URL that gets replaced on build, or actually right after build, with the actual connection string necessary to access the production database. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the comments. So we are right at the start time for Cap Metro. So we'll give you a few seconds to get set up. TO team, thank you guys for presenting.
Hi everyone, so I'm the team lead for Cap Metro, and before we get started with showing you the look of our web application, I just wanted to go into the problem statement and our social impact. So our problem statement is that in Austin, Texas, there is a lack of a bus system web application for people to use, which is free for use.
Sorry to interrupt. Are you presenting, Adriana? Are you showing something?
No, not yet.
Okay,
We're
perfect.
gonna show the
Go
web
ahead.
application, and then we're gonna show our slides afterwards.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
So for this project, we are currently creating a system for people to log in and be able to better use the Austin, Texas bus system free from use because there currently exists such an app, but it is pay per use. And also the school has a busing app, but it's not for the whole city of Austin, Texas. So we're tackling this issue. And the social impact is that when people are going to be traveling and needing to use this busing system, they need a way to be able to know when the bus is coming and be able to use it, especially if they're new to the area or they just want to go and travel outside their normal daily like schedule. So this is like a needed thing for people in the area, and it's for everyone, not just specifically students, but all age ranges. And as a web application, this would still be able to be loaded on a phone and still be in use. However, it's much easier to have and deploy than an app would be, which would take a lot longer and might have issues with becoming an app and be accepted into the App Store. Stacia, can you show the local host and show some pictures?
Yep. Let me just share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Is it
Yes.
visible? Okay. So here's our website. It's still on localhost. We're still working out some development stuff, sorry, deployment stuff. So we have a navbar on top that Clarissa made. We are using the Google Maps API from the vis.gl library, and we have the modal for selecting and deselecting routes, and then we have the route itself with the bus icons and the stops, which are like the small circles. And the route is displayed using like a component called the polyline. Furthermore, on the bottom right-hand corner, we have this live location button. So when I click on it, it says, "Oh, do you want to share your location?" And then it just shows where I am right now. The rest of the stuff, was already provided from the Google Maps API. So apart from that, let's go into one more feature, which is the autocomplete suggestions. This is also from the viz.gl library. It's just a component that you grab from there, and you can use it. So if I search up for, say, Texas A&M, what it does is it places a pin, which is basically like an advanced marker. That's the name of the component itself. And it pans to that specific location. By default, when you open up the website's going to land in the center of Austin. So if I just go back here, it's going to land in the center of Austin, which is like right here. We hard-coded the coordinates to be the center of Austin. We also have a few buttons here, which is like show all. If I click on that, it's going to show every single route, every single bus that's right now running, and I can hide everything. By default, if I click on a single route, it's going to pull up the northbound. So let me just zoom in to like a moving bus, or this one stopped at a bus stop. So if I click on it, I can see the bus number, and you can see it stopped at 2203 Congress Live Oak. So if I click on this, you can see that it matches 2203 Congress Live Oak. Let me try to find a bus that's currently moving. So you can see that this one's moving. So you can see next stop is Guadalupe 43rd. Arrival time is 6:33. So it's delayed by 6 minutes. We can see the delay calculation, and you can see the next stop is indeed that. Recently, we also included the functionality to maintain the selects across refreshes. So if I refresh this website, it's still going to be selected. We have a few new features coming in the future, which is like favoriting the route, and stuff like displaying the wheelchair accessibility of that stop. But yeah, let me just move on to the slides. Yep, Adrian, if you want to talk about the tech stack.
So for tech stack, we're using React as something to start off with, and Google Maps API, like Sasha was showing, in order to impose on the screen like the very basic of like the background, which is all of like Google Maps, the entire like site background of the map. And then for the back end, they're using Python and Flask. Our database is Postgres SQL, and there's been a lot of work on the database and a lot of information that we're getting that we need to connect to the front end in the future that's going to be used. And then for integrations, we have WebSocket to come in the future. And we're using the Texas OpenAI Data Portal API in order to get our data for our backend.
Yeah, so our front-end team consists of me, Clarissa, Yoma, and Adriana. And if you want to talk about the DigitalOcean launch.
So for DigitalOcean right now, we have two separate deployments. The top deployment, CapMetro deployment 1 is the front-end deployment, and CapMetro back-end deployment is the back-end deployment. We've chosen to separate them in order to catch issues as they arise easier and be able to focus on what is the source of the problem. Our first deployment on the front end was successful, but when we redeployed this week, it broke and we're still working on fixing it. As for the back end, last week when we launched it, we were having issues, but this week we were able to resolve them. So until we have like finished up with the project and are very near to the end or finished, we don't plan on combining these deployments and deploying both together in order to catch issues. So we'll do that later when front end is entirely dependent on back end and they're like connected. But that's where we stand currently on deployment in DigitalOcean, and it's rather simple. We just have it where we like cite the like branch that we need to be on. So the folder we are like the front end folder is being launched in the front end deployment, the back end folder in the back end deployment, and then we also have a database deployment in our DigitalOcean as well.
Okay, so just a small update on that. We are actually switching from Create React App to Beat to reduce the vulnerabilities that we noticed. And hopefully that will be deployed soon, so the front end will also be up and running. And so we have a README that's set up. We used a template. We copy pasted the template and then added all the custom information needed to set up and run this app. And someone else is using it. And for upcoming future batches of Teamup, who are going to work in the CapMetro app. And yeah, we just talked about the website. Some challenges were the autocomplete element. This autocomplete element would be needed to be placed inside another component. So we need to like wrap it inside a custom component and then use that custom component inside the map component in our home page. And another challenge is choosing the route shape. There's a file called shapes.txt, and each route has multiple shapes depending upon what shape they're using for the trip. As of right now, we have the route shapes based on popularity, but we will be transitioning that into getting the route shape for the based on daily trip IDs. And future features, yeah, we need to make responsive CSS design, navigation, basically from navigating from one location to another location, and see what buses we can use, where, how much we need to walk, all that stuff, and favoriting routes, obviously. I'll let Clarissa take over for the nav bar.
Yeah, so I incorporated the nav bar, and basically how I did that is I routed all these pages like explore, plan trips, favorites, and some of those are currently empty, blank because they require future work. And then I focused on the login so that we could get people to log in to their account and favorite their own trips for things that they want or a trip that they want to use in the future. So I went and incorporated that, and with Seisha's help, we also implemented that search bar. So first I started out with the login, getting a regular email and password working by saving it in the backend and with like SQL and getting that to work. So that's fully functional right now. We're still working on Google Auth, trying to get that working. It is almost incorporated on the front end, and it would need a little bit of back end work as well to get it fully functional. And then I also worked on the create account page as well as Shooty, helping me on the back end, getting that set up, and that is also fully functional as well. And furthermore, we are working on the reset password page. So the design is done, but we need to work on the functionality. So a couple of setbacks is I had no idea how to do anything in HTML, JavaScript, or React, or CSS. So it was definitely a difficult process getting here, but I definitely had some issues, doing proper rerouting to the login, especially when you click on the favorites page, because that's supposed to be a user auth. You're supposed to be a user logged in order to access the favorites. So proper rerouting to the login and then to the favorites page after you're logged in was a little bit difficult for me. And then also struggling a little bit with the Google Auth login setup has been a little bit difficult for me as well. And moving forward, I hope to get those figured out and start up the favorites page so that we can have saved trips for our users.
Yeah, yeah, Mo, if you want to go ahead.
Right. So my contribution to the project is that I actually added a simple UI to the plan trips page. So, because I was given like a little thing that we wanted it to look like. So I just added basic like labels, and yeah, I've added a date and time feature and everything on that. And in the future, as the weeks go on, I'll try to incorporate the same feature that Seisha has on the main app, where it just automatically fills out what's it called, the location you're trying to go into. But yeah, that's what I've contributed so
Yeah.
far. And I don't really have too many problems as I was going through it. I mean, obviously I'm new to React and all this stuff, but yeah, I got over all that. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna hand it over to Harsh for backend deployment.
Thank you, Shesha. Howdy, I'm Harsh. I'm the co-lead for the Cap Metro project, and I had the opportunity to lead the backend development. Uh, it has been somewhat smooth sailing so far, and thanks to the hard work of our team, Darren, Shruti, Keisha, May, and myself, and the amazing support of the backend mentor, Nancy. So far, we have designed an efficient PostgreSQL database along with several RESTful APIs, include generic RESTful APIs included a few custom ones tailored to front-end needs. So a database currently holds static GDFS data. We handpick only the relevant files, and while it may look like we basically copy-pasted our columns directly, we chose to keep everything since the data size is small and some of our fields might be useful later on. Our schema follows the GDFS structure pretty closely, but we added foreign key constraint to enforce a relationship like linking trips to routes and stop times to both stops and trips. So this helps maintain data integrity and makes it easier to run meaningful queries. One of our main blockers was while designing the database was deciding whether to include only the GDFS attributes we need right now, or maybe just all of them, since for like future flexibility, So we did choose to keep everything as since the data set is small and some of the fields might become useful later on for analytics purposes or maybe extra features. So I'm gonna hand it over to Keisha.
Okay, so I focused on the script for the GTFS data fetch, which is our static data set. So it consists of things like our routes, stop times. It's not something we expect to update that often, but when it does, we want to make sure that our database reflects the most updated information. So on the screen, I put a screenshot of the terminal output for when the script is run, so you can see the approach I took. But just like a brief overview, what the script does is it first detects for an update through the e-tag header. So it checks if that e-tag header is different from the previous one, meaning that the file is a different file. And so if it recognizes it's a new e-tag, it will download and extract that data. And then using SQL Alchemy and Pandas, it's going to truncate the existing data from the table, and then repopulate those tables with the updated tables. Or repopulate those tables with the updated data. One blocker we came across is that we were concerned that because our web application relies on constant access to the data, that when the tables are truncated, that they would be queried in our web application, meaning that they're essentially querying from empty tables. So to fix this, we made materialized views for each of the tables. So they essentially act as a copy of the original table. And so at the end of every script, we just simply refresh those views, and our web application will continuously just query from those views.
Okay.
All right, guys,
So
we'll give you
I worked on
another minute to wrap up. Thank you.
So I focused on optimizing slow performing SQL queries. One example I have on the side was getting like the next few departure times for a specific stop. So as you can see, the original query was like 2000 milliseconds, that's around 2 seconds. And just to optimize that a little bit, I worked on creating indexes for all the large data tables like stop times, trips, and calendar dates. And I used explain and analyze to notice where the sequential scans are happening and how I can include index scans, which are much faster. And then also working on better like organizing the queries using temporary tables, like you can see on the side over here. Some of the blockers that I faced was dealing with overflow times in the data set. For example, there are times that go beyond the 23:59:59, which caused issues when you're trying to compare with like the actual time data structure. So like coordinating the different data structures, I used materialized views with the corrected data time and updated calendar dates to address this issue. Some of the other stuff I worked on were creating the backend support for the login and create account functionality, as well as the stop information that Seisha was showing in the beginning, like the stop expected time and which one is the next stop.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Darren.
Oh, I think you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I'll keep it really brief. So I was responsible for a lot of the backend APIs, fleshing those out, as well as the authentication on the backend, keeping private routes like user preferences, user password, those kinds of things secure. You can play that video, by the way.
Okay.
So what you're seeing right now essentially is I'm doing an initial attempt to make a query, and it's failing because I don't have the token. And then in a second, you're going to see me sending a proper login information right there. I'm going to send it. I'm going to get the authorization key back, and then I'm going to send the query again, and it's going to work. So that's what's happening right there. I was responsible for a lot of the APIs like calendar, or not calendar, but routes, schedule, shapes, those, just kind of getting those working. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay. This wants to close. Yeah, there we go. All right, May.
Alright, I implemented the basic get API calls for stops and including get all stops details and get stop by stop IDs and stuff like that. And also added comments for the backend API calls describing its purpose, parameters, and outputs. And besides that, I also implemented a real-time fetcher script so that when the backend is running, it will retrieve the real-time vehicle position and store the data in the front-end directories. And it will update every 50 seconds in the front-end folder. And moving forward, I will collaborate with the team to improve and optimize it with the WebSocket. Yeah, as the video showing, it's in the front-end folder and it will update every 15 seconds. And for the challenges, I'm also new to several libraries, and so I spent time learning the documentations and experimenting with simple code to overcome this. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make it super quick. Our most major blocker would be right now is current architecture for real-time bus tracking has a few critical issues. So the backend writes the bus data as static JSON file every 50 seconds. That works in development, but not in production. This is a spot by Hung, so thank you so much for that. So to solve this problem, our Hung proposed a WebSocket-based architecture. So with that, the backend can push updates in real time as soon as the new data comes in. So we'll only send what we need instead of like full data set. It will just make it more faster, lighter updates and no need to rebuild the app just to like refresh the data. So this change will make our app just more scalable and more efficient and much more accurate for the user to get that real-time app.
And for next steps, it was basically what we talked about during. So want to have navigation to go from point A to point B. We want to finish deployment of the front end to make that working and then launch front end and back end together. We want to display all possible routes for navigation and have nearby stops displayed. We want to have the bus stop route be updated by the day so that it shows the correct like shape line because currently it's just like the most common route shape, but we want to make it so it's updated each day to the shape that it is. WebSockets we need in order to send live bus updates, and we want to let users get updates that they care about and keep track of users' connections and make sure updates reach them reliably. So most commonly making it production ready and like finish up development.
That's it. That's pretty much it for the presentation. Any questions? Sorry for the long time.
I have, should I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Since you're working with an external data source, have you found that to be reliable and any glitches? And do you have any error handling just in case you have some problems with the data? I'm sorry. It's thunder. Any problems with the data that you're getting every 15 seconds?
Yep. So I personally have opinions against open data sources because if they have good documentation, it's going to be very easy to use. One of our major difficulties was trying to figure out how to get the route shapes to display the routes as lines on the website themselves. There's multiple route shapes for each route. And how this is determined is it's simply based on daily information that's provided from the trips.txt file. Each trip ID has its own route shape, and trying to figure this out was very hard, and we had to do a bunch of Python scripting to just get a JSON file that that has all the routes associated with the northbound points and the southbound points so that we can plot them on the website. And for error handling, we do have some error checking. Basically, some of the bus data has a heading. Some of the buses don't have a heading. So we're just using conditional rendering. Based on the availability of the bearing of the bus. And furthermore, we're also using conditional rendering for displaying the arrival time and delay. If there's no arrival time available for that specific trip and that specific bus, we just display NA and not available.
Does the front end communicate directly with the data source, or is that through the back end?
So right now, what we have is we have API calls written by the backend team, and I use API calls that communicates with the database. The only fetch call that requires data directly from the website itself is the vehicle positions. Other than that, we are grabbing all of the data from the GTFS and putting it into our database. This GTFS data does get updated randomly. It's updated as needed on their website. So whenever it's updated, Keisha just runs a script that just grabs all of the data and stores it in the database.
So the reference data is in the back end and the real-time data is in the front end. That's the
Yep.
Okay.
I can talk a little bit about the answer. So yeah, so the static data is in the database, and we have the API endpoints that calls it, and they work perfectly with the HTTP request from the front end to back end, and the back end has CRUD request goes from back end to database. So those works perfectly for the static data, but we've been having problems with real-time data, and one of my concern was to we need to update it every 15 seconds, and just using normal fetch requests will have a delay that will make the 15-second even longer, so we won't have up-to-date data. So I think Hung recommended a WebSocket. So this week we're going to be planning on implementing WebSocket, which is basically opening communications to front end and back end, and they can just share data without any fetch requests or anything like that, and it will just be way faster.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Right.
I had a couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Will you be able to select multiple routes at once on your front end? You showed selecting a route and it showed the shape. Can you select?
Yes, sir. Of course.
Okay, cool. And then also, I was curious about how you're storing the state of how many things you have selected, or what your current selections, how you're persisting that state.
So it's going to be in a local storage. So if I go to application and here, you can see a array here. That's basically indexed based on the route index. So you can see that we have true for the first four. So the first four selected, and if I change that, you can see that it's getting updated. So when I refresh it, this still stays. So
Okay, yeah, I ran into a similar problem on a personal project and had almost the same exact solution. So
yeah,
good to see.
that's awesome to hear. Yeah.
Any other questions?
So my question will be, as you have a few more weeks left, how confident are you in completing the remaining features? And there's also one question from Josh, I believe, or a comment from Josh in the chats. That will be it for me.
Yeah, it's just a comment, just because that question about the state management of selected shapes and routes is something that, in my experience as a user of Metro apps, struggle with. So it's a very good question.
And I think I'll go first to answer Dr. Kipo's question on in terms of the front end. I would say 100% we will be able to meet all of the requirements for the front end to get the responsive design and all of the pages working with the navigation feature built in and the plan trips feature. I think it would be a definitely achievable thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and as for the backend, we're kind of like having a puzzles and have all the pieces done. So we have kind of 50% of the static done. So with this week having WebSockets done, that will allow us to get the real-time data in progress too. So that is kind of like the other big piece of the real-time, of course, Cap Metro app, which will allow us to see the 15-minute frequent updates on the backend. So I think it is definitely achievable, and I think I had a good idea. But Duncan's like we want to leave the last week for any unexpected things that we didn't expect for and debugs. So as of now, I think even with the major setback, I think we can still bounce back this week and get the WebSockets done and still be on track.
Given Harsh and Seisha's responses, I didn't want to answer for everyone and say absolutely yes because I didn't want to like speak for other people, but I think that it's it's achievable for us, and I think for deployment as well. I believe it's achievable as we spent like an hour something to fix the back end deployment. I think we spend a bit more time. We can fix the front end deployment, and the deployment will also work, and we will have it finished in time and have it functional. And I think it looks really good already. And like I feel like we're more than halfway there, but of course, like the last 10% really requires a lot of effort. So but I think we're in a good place.
Great, great.
Thank you for that, Duncan.
Thank you, guys. All right, so I guess we're past our cutoff time. If there are any other questions or feedback, we'll be more than happy to collect them by email. Just want to say thank you to our mentors for joining us so late in the day. And yeah, thank you, teams. I think this is looking very good. It's very refreshing to see something live and already working and deployed. So you got something out there, and we're hoping that this is something people can actually try and use in a couple of weeks. So yeah, thanks for putting your time. I know this is summer, you have other commitments, but this is looking great, and wish you all good luck. And we'll see some of you on Thursday. Good night, everyone.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Y'all
Have
have
a
a
good
good
night.
day.
Good night. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.